Yes, I'm happy you found the way to Zoom. And on behalf of Tibet House, I would like to welcome you very warmly to this evening talk about the topic Your Mind is Mahamudra. Um, for our participants, James Lowe is a guest teacher who almost every year uh, came to Tibet House since 2016, and yeah, he's internationally renowned Dzogchen and Mahamudra teacher, and had for a long time practiced for psychotherapy and worked in a hospital in London. And now, after his retirement, he's concentrating on his teachings. And we are very happy to have him here this evening. And I also would like to welcome all the participants online and wish you a very interesting evening with the topic Your Mind is Mahamudra. So, Mahamudra, the Great Seal, you could say, is the sister of Dzogchen, the great accomplishment. These are two teachings of Tibetan Buddhism with a big overleap. And um, Mahamudra and yeah, is uh, a teaching that gives us the possibility to experience the nature of our own mind and how's the connection between Mahamudra and our own mind, the nature of our own mind, and the awakening to our own nature. This will be the topic of this evening. So, James, I'm looking very much forward to your talk, and yeah, we wish us all a wonderful evening.
Thank you. So, hello. The topic is in some ways a little bit strange because we don't normally think of ourselves and each other in terms of our mind. We think in terms of personality, of character traits, of likes and dislikes, of the way we position ourselves in the world, what we're drawn towards, what we turn away from. So we generally, when we think of people, we think of an individual, somebody who will have aspects of their life in common with other people, that they speak a particular language, they wear similar kind of clothes, eat similar kinds of food. And yet, somehow, when we see this particular person, we know they are quite singular. They are not the same as anyone else. They have their own specificity. And that's often what we focus on. What makes John different from Mary? What makes this person not the same as that person? So, when we meet someone new and we're getting to know them, we tend to be, whether consciously or unconsciously, doing a lot of comparing and contrasting. Where does this person fit in with the people who I know, with the kind of people I like, or perhaps with the kind of people I prefer to avoid? That is to say, I want to take my sense of the shape of the person, of how they are, how they come into the world, and see how I want to situate myself in terms of them. So this is our usual way of proceeding. So there is someone has been elected to be the next president of America. And there are some people who like him and some people who don't like him. And if you like him, you have certain kinds of feelings of hope that arise. And if you don't like him, you have certain feelings of despair and anxiety about what will happen in Ukraine and in Europe if they cut back on the money and so on. So in that way, as we gain a sense of the shape of ourselves and the shape of other people, we situate ourselves in terms of closeness or distance. This is our usual way of proceeding. In Buddhism, although of course they have many ideas about what is personality, how it arises, it's not seen as fundamental or definitive. Rather, the concern is with the mind, because it's the mind which is the experiencer. Without a mind, nothing is going to register for you. But with your mind, you register things that please you, things that don't please you. And so the formulation of your unique specificity, what it is that makes you precisely you and not anyone else, this is also dependent on having a mind. Now, what kind of mind do I have? Well, I have my mind. And maybe my mind is not the same as your mind. Maybe you have a better mind. Maybe I have a better mind. Anyway, we have a different mind. How do I know your mind is different? Because I talk with you and I'm thinking, wow, these people are a little bit strange. Imagine they're thinking things like that. I don't think that. They think that. Uh-oh. So in that way, comparing and contrasting, formulating shapes and seeing how they fit together, what is harmonious, what is disharmonious, is a great deal of the mental activity that we use to work out, can I feel safe here? Do I belong here? Am I one of us? Is there a setting in which I can have belonging? So in Buddhism, we're concerned with two aspects of the mind. One is the mind as the accumulation, the mind as a word, which is used to refer to the accumulation of patterns. So some people's minds are dominated by desire. They always want to get new clothes and new possessions, new boyfriends, maybe. Other people are dominated by anger and irritability. They seem to find their life energy through being critical and seeing the faults in how other people are. So there are tendencies which can act like a kind of distorting lens or a highlighting lens, which mean that for each individual, certain features of the environment are made very large, very powerful, very important, but other features recede into the background. So in the general Buddhist teachings, we are encouraged to develop what is positive, what is ethical, to develop wisdom, compassion, to purify our own limitations in order to become more available in order to help others. And with that, we are adopting and rejecting. We are doing a kind of almost as if yourself or your identity was a business, and you're doing an auditing review of your qualities. What aspects of yourself open some market share for you? What gets you closer to other people, in which case you might want to develop these qualities, and what qualities seem to annoy other people and create distance between you, and you might want to diminish these. So again, this is the realm of management, managing yourself in a world of other people who have some similarities and some dissimilarities. because our starting place is usually, I know what I'm like. I am me, me, myself, I am like this. And because I am like this, certain doors open for me and other doors close. I'm drawn towards some activities, some people, and not towards others. So my attention, directed by the formation of myself, becomes selective. I'm looking to spend my time with the features of the world which confirm my validity, my value, and I want to avoid the factors of the world that would be critical of me or make me feel smaller or unloved. So we're wanting affirmation and belonging, and we're a little bit afraid of exclusion. So through these processes of many, many centuries of Dharma practice, of developing the mind and developing the mind, gradually an awareness dawned that all compounded things are impermanent. Whatever qualities you develop in your personality depend on the situation within which they were developed. So they're there for a while, and then as the formative factors shift, they start to fade away. So you build yourself up through going to school, through studying, through working out how to get a job, maybe raise a family, and so on. And then gradually, as you get older, you find that your energy and your capacity to activate your qualities starts to diminish. So it's like a curve that then goes into a decline. Therefore, if we want to get out of samsara, if we want liberation from this endless work of building something up, which vanishes, which will collapse, which will go, then we need to find the unchanging, the unmodified, the unconstructed. And this is the central concern of all the schools of Buddhism, whether they're Theravadan or Mahayana or Tantric or Mahamudra. How can I find rest? Because samsara is, in Tibetan, the word korwa means revolving or turning or moving, like a wheel is moving. You don't get any rest. And as we know in our life, there's always something to be done. You have to do shopping, then you have to do cooking, then you have to do cleaning, you have to pay the bills. There are so many things to do, always changing and developing. And so we don't find any rest because we don't live on a little private island. There isn't an island of the self. What I take to be myself is intimately connected with other people. And as they change and move, I get changed and moved. So whatever security I can try to bring to myself by limiting the impact of other people and supporting the factors which seem to reassure me that I'm okay as a person, these factors are not in the palm of my hand. I don't control them. Events happen, sicknesses happen, relationships break up, children get sick, wars start all over the world now. We can see the most terrible, terrible kind of experiences that people are exposed to, which were not there 5 years ago. These sudden eruptions of warfare, of rape, of torture, of complete heartlessness towards other people. So we see that a friendly disposition, which may make us feel safe in a particular environment, is depending on many factors we don't understand. And then a cold wind blows and friends become enemies. and the world is not as safe as we thought it was. We see this with people's behavior changing, with climate changing. People's houses are flooded in Spain. This would be unthinkable. Huge flooding, mud everywhere, the distress, the sadness of these things. My house, my life, my car, my job, wiped out, suddenly wiped out. What is the basis that I'm standing on? I make all this effort. I have some map in my mind of what will be a good life. I ask other people, I do many trainings, but still I find myself somehow unsafe. Now, from the Buddhist point of view, they would say, indeed, that is true. This is not a punishment. It's not because there's some devil or demon that is trying to destroy your life. All compounded phenomena, all things are impermanent. Houses are built up and fall down. Children are born, and if they're lucky, they get old and die. The food that you buy in the market gets eaten. Everything is in a process of having a function and then gradually losing its function. There is no stability in samsara. So the main focus of Buddhist practice is to attempt to find stability. So going right back to the basic meditation practice, we have what's called shamatha or shine, which means to stay peacefully, to be able to sit quietly without too much disturbance. So we can focus on the experience of the breath at the nostrils, or focusing our mind on the small statue of the Buddha or some stable object, and we just rest our attention on our chosen object, and if we wander off, we gently bring our attention back. So gradually we can learn not to be distracted. So we will gain the stability which is resting on our capacity not to be distracted. But of course, there are, when you're sitting in meditation, there's a fairly limited range of disturbing factors. If you were living in the Sudan and you have been chased out of your village by very violent people with guns who are really threatening to harm you, then you're on the run. And you can't control your breath and therefore control yourself. It's a very, very scary environment to be in. So whenever I am the person who is responsible for controlling my state, for calming my state in order to bring about a settling in myself, that's a kind of heroic turn. That I, the hero, will overcome all difficulties, I will face every obstacle, and I will find a way through. It sounds nice, sounds very brave, but it may not be possible because there are many, many terrible situations which are truly difficult to engage with. So when we encounter our mind and the movement of the mind, we could try to calm it, as with this shamatha practice. But then if our mind was really calm, we wouldn't be able to think, and we wouldn't be able to go to work, and we wouldn't be able to take care of children or have relationships, because all of these activities involve the movement of the mind by saying, hello, how are you? When you say that, you don't know what the other person's going to say. It's not like being in the theater where you have a script that you can learn. As soon as you say hello, you're stepping into the unknown. They might say, I'm really happy. I've just won a lot of money and I want to give you 1,000 euros. Say, oh, how very nice. Or they might want to say, actually, I was sleeping with your wife last night. And they say, oh, not so nice. So all kind of things can arise because we don't know what's going to happen. So the question then is, how can the agent, the participant, the mind as it engages with the field of activity, remain clear and grounded and calm whatever happens? And in the deeper, we might say, the more meditative pathways in Buddhism, like Tantra and Mahamudra and Dzogchen, we are concerned not so much with the transient content of the mind, with whatever feelings or memories or thoughts or intentions might be arising. We are concerned much more with the quality of awareness, of simply being present, illuminating the field of experience, but without acting on the field of experience to try to create patterns which will be pleasing for the ego self. It's not that Buddhas have no self. I mean, the Buddha can eat, he can drink a cup of tea. So the hand of the Buddha and the mouth of the Buddha have some kind of connection. It's not that there's nobody there. The difference is that the Buddha is engaged in being present, in being aware. And being present means in this moment and this moment and this moment, there is just this, just this, just this. So I am settled in being here now, open to what is arising, not jumping into the future, not jumping into the past, but relaxed in the space, the spacious awareness which reveals whatever is arising. So this is a different orientation. It's not the mind defined by the content of the mind, but rather the mind as the capacity for knowing. So it's a kind of noetic or illuminating quality. So in Mahamudra, the orientation is inclusive. So we say it's grounded in seeing that what I have access to is my experience. I have my mind, and what arises in my mind constitutes my experience. So that when I relate to other people, they, in their meeting with me and my meeting with them, they arise for me as aspects of my experience. In the moment of our meeting, our conjunction, I have access to what is displayed in their presentation. That is to say, you are each at this very moment, whether you're with other people on your own or looking at a screen, your life is a process, moment by moment, of experience arising and passing, arising and passing. This is your lived subjectivity. This is the world revealed for you. Or to express it differently, this is your world. Nobody else will have exactly the same world as you, because you bring to your participation the orientation of your senses. Some people like bright colors, others like more muted colors. Some people like one kind of music, other people like another. So that the vast richness of the open field of experience is engaged with according to our tendencies, our habit formations. And so some things become very real or very important, and other things become less important. The central point of that is simply to be aware and present. And then we see that experience doesn't cease. So in the tradition, they say the mind itself is unborn. That is to say, it's not a thing in the world. It's not like a teacup. It's not like your shoes. It's not like a pot in the kitchen. It's not a thing which you can pick up and put down, that you can look at and find. Every time you look at your mind, you see something different, because the mind is the site of the disclosure of experience. So I have been living in the flat that been in now for many years. So I know what the kitchen looks like. I know what I'm likely to find if I go into the kitchen. That is to say, it's a fixed shape, and it has so many plates in it, or teacups, or whatever. It is knowable. But your mind is not knowable in that sense, because you have many thoughts, you have many feelings, and you don't know when they're going to arise. None of us knows what is going to arise in our mind in the next minute. A sudden memory could arise. I might say something that reminds you of something else. New formations are arising all the time. So I, as the content of my mind, am unpredictable. I am unpredictable for you, and I'm very unpredictable for me, because I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what I'm going to think. So this is very strange. Then you think, this new president in America, he is going to have access to nuclear weapons. He can sit there with a big button in front of him and decide whether to engage in a nuclear war, but he doesn't know what thought's going to arise in his mind in the next minute. That's slightly troubling. So it's quite helpful to do some meditation practice and come to see that the patterning of construction of mental formations is not something that we control. It's something we participate in, something which generates our sense of being ourselves, that this is who I am, this is how I am, and yet it's not mine. If you like, myself is not me. It's not mine. It's not a possession. So I've been talking now for about 30 minutes. So you have some sense of the way that I speak and what I say. So you might think, whoa, James is a bit strange. He is like this. That's your gradual development of some image of who James is. What is the relation between your image of who James is and James's image of who James is? Which one is more accurate? Perhaps yours. Perhaps I am completely deluded. We don't know, because the content of the mind is shifting and changing. So in Mahamudra, our focus of attention is not on trying to correct or shape or organize the content of our experience. It is to relax and open to the ground basis of experience, which is the mind itself, which is simply basic knowing or illuminating, or it is, if you like, it's the sphere in which the luminosity of inner experience and the ceaseless movement of outer experience register. So I'm sitting here, I'm aware of some sensation in my throat, which you're not aware of. this is mine. The sensation in my body is my sensation. You can't access it directly. Even if you were a doctor, you would have to ask me, James, how does your throat feel? So you have your memories, your plans, your hopes, your fears. This is the inner content of the mind. Nowadays, in the translation of Tibetan texts, this is often described as luminosity, because it's the arising of an experience within the mind. The thought doesn't come out of your mind and go somewhere else. It shows itself and then vanishes. The way a rainbow arises in the sky, you see the rainbow, it's definitely there, but you can't touch it, you can't get it. In the same way, when a thought or a feeling or a memory comes in your mind, it's there, it's very intimate, it impacts you. You might feel it might generate some sensation in the body, or a desire to speak, or a sudden hunger. All sorts of things could be evoked, but none of them is definitive of who you are. So this is the very central way in Mahamudra of seeing the absence of a self. By self, we would tend to understand some aspect of me being me, which is always there, which is definitive of who I am. If you know this about me, you will really know me. But what could that be? How I speak, the food I eat, the clothes I wear, what I do in the course of the day, all of that changes according to circumstances. So what I take to be I, me, myself is constituted by, or is derived from the patterning, the shaping of transient moments of experience, which are here and then gone, here and then gone. That is to say, I have no fixed self. I don't exist as a thing. I am not a thing. I have a pen, so I can know this plastic pen. I use this kind of pen every day. I know what it's like. I know roughly how long it will last for, and then I need to use a new pen. I can know a lot about the pen, but people are not like that. Sentient beings are not like that, because the pen has a limited number of variables, and it has a kind of boundary to it. So if I put it on the table doesn't alter the pen very much. Whereas I am very porous. The events of the world soak into me, flow into me through my senses, and I'm altered by that. So if there was a sudden noise outside, I would get a kind of shock. Oh, what is that? Something has happened. And my attention would be deflected by that. That is to say, I am a movement or a pattern of movement in a field of movement. I am not a thing, I am a potential. So I'm here with you for an hour and a half today. What exactly will happen in this hour and a half, I don't know. You don't know. We hope something useful. It will arise as it arises. I'm not giving a speech I have already written. My aim is always to get a feeling tone of how it is to be here with you and link with that and see if we can unpack the immediacy of this question, like, who am I? Do I exist as someone? All the seemingly fixed or definitive constituents of myself arise on the basis of other factors. So I could say I'm Scottish, but I'm Scottish because I was born in Scotland, because my parents lived in Scotland. If they'd lived in another country, I wouldn't be Scottish. So my Scottishness is mine. I'm Scottish, I was born there, but it's not inherent in me. It is dependent on the fact of my parents being Scottish and living in Scotland at the time of my birth. So what seems to be internal, belonging to me, and is existing inside me as a basis of how I move out into the world to be with other people, that also is simply an interactive or transactional factor. That's the meaning in Buddhism of no self. It doesn't mean that we don't come into a shape, we don't take on a particular pattern as we relate moment by moment. What it's suggesting is that this patterning is dynamic and responsive. It's not determined internally. So I'm not the master of the situation. I'm not bringing myself out already formed into the world. I come into formation through being with other people. But nor am I completely a victim. I'm not generated just by other people, because my reactions, my capacity to respond is part of how you might speak with me, or I see on these little screens you looking at me, whether you look interested or bored. Well, that would be my interpretation as well. So it's mental activity is determining the patterning of experience. That is to say, our life is dynamic. It's always changing, outwardly changing, inwardly changing, moment by moment. So how will I find stability if I am moving? It's not that just that things are happening to me. If I could control these things, then my life could be more stable. It's that I am moving and the events around me are moving and the people around me are moving. The whole shebang, the whole force, the whole vast field of experience is dynamic and moving. So where is stability? This is in the mind itself. This is Mahamudra. So the Maha in Mahamudra means big. This bigness indicates the bigness of infinity or emptiness. It has no limit to it. It's not big in comparison to some other things. It's just infinite. You can't find a limit to your own mind as it actually is. In the mudra is the integrity of the three aspects of the mind's unborn openness, the mind's ceaseless luminosity, and the mind's participation through the five elements in embodied being in the world, responding with other people and with situations. So we are empty and open, we are bright and shining, and we are participative. We know this, that in the morning, because the weather's excuse me, the weather's changing. You wake up in the morning, you look out on the street, and you see, oh, what kind of clothes do I have to wear today? You could decide, oh, I'm just going to wear summer clothes. I don't accept the meaning of winter and autumn. I don't like these kind of things. I'll just wear sandals and some shorts and wander about. Then you get very cold, because the shaping of the environment is something you have to work with. If it's cold outside, we put on clothes because we don't have a covering of wool like a sheep. So we need to have our artificial sheepskin to keep us warm. That is to say, the survival of my body is operating in a bandwidth of not too hot, not above 45 degrees centigrade, or I'm going to get very sick, and not below zero, otherwise I'm going to get very, very cold, inside a bandwidth of maybe 20 to 30 degrees, quite temperate, quite a reasonable temperature, then I feel at ease. If I go to the extremes, I don't feel so well. So there is a way in which our embodied being in the world has to be responsive if we are going to have contact. If you're too cold in yourself and somebody's telling you something important, you can hardly hear them. You just say, I'm so cold, I can't listen. No, 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 no. Or if you need to go to the toilet, you feel the same. No, 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 I have to go, I have to go. We don't have a choice. So in that way, internal factors and external factors are meeting together, and they generate the particular patterning of our lived experience in this moment. So Mahamudra is the nature of the mind itself, which is infinite, which is inclusive, and which is without bias. That is to say, it's different from our ordinary ego informed notion of our mental functioning. Because a lot of our mental functioning, as I was indicating earlier, turns around the question of, do I like this? Do I not like this? Do I want to get more of this or less of this? It's not inclusive. The ego mind is always concerned with inclusion and exclusion. It wants to include the things it likes and exclude the things it doesn't like. And we see that this is operating in politics everywhere in terms of, do you have more immigrants or fewer immigrants? Should we be importing a lot of food from nations that might turn against us? Should we import lots of electric cars from China and maybe collapse our own car industry? There are many ways in which the ego sensibility is trying to deal with this moving field. How can I make it work for me? So the starting point is me, how I am, what I want. In Mahamudra, we are not concerned with this. Anyway, we are going to be these kind of thoughts and concerns are going to be arising in the mind. We don't need to privilege them. Mahamudra, as a meditation system, is primarily concerned with letting go of the habitual arousal of activating mental factors of evaluation. So, for example, in the origins, the historical origins of the teachings of Mahamudra, Tilopa is one of the great founders of this. He gained an inspiration directly from the primordial Buddha Dorje Chang, and he taught to his main disciple Naropa how the mind is, what is Mahamudra. And he said it has 6 factors. The first is no recollection. That is to say, when you're sitting in the meditation practice, don't go back into the past. Don't call from the past into the present things that have happened. The past is gone. Stay with the past is gone. So if a thought arises, the thought is now. It couldn't be anywhere else. You're here and now. The thought arises. It's now. But the cognitive content or the semantic content of the thought might be about the past. That is to say, now I find myself thinking about what happened in September. So it looks like a thought has come from September to me. But where is September? It's gone. It's vanished. Not possible to go back to September. The thought of September is happening now. So the actuality, the true immediacy of what is occurring is always here and now. But the interpretation that we make of what is here and now can take us into a conceptual definition of the status of something. So the conceptual idea of what happened in September is very different from the simple clarity that's gone. So we become very good at thinking about the past. We say, oh, you have to learn from the past. You should reflect on what you do. At work, you might get a performance review and you have to sit with your manager and go over what you've done in the last year. And they say, no, you need to become more efficient, or perhaps you need to do a training in this. That is to say, we can look at how you are, which is how you manifest, and make some judgment about it. You're doing well or you're not doing well. All of this is conceptual. What is the relation between these conceptual elaborations, these interpretations, and the mind itself? The thing about the mind itself, it's here and now, here and now, here and now. The rest is gone. It's really gone. When I retired from the hospital, I had a big filing cabinet full of all kinds of certificates that I got from running trainings, being on trainings, and so on, all kinds of reports of how I was doing. Who did they refer to? Not to me. They referred to somebody who no longer existed. They were stories about a dead person. I mean, I'm still alive, but the person who went on these training courses, who got these certificates, who had this professional membership, no longer existed. So these certificates were a kind of welcome to Ghostland. You too could be haunted by your past. You could imagine that you're wandering down the pathways of the past. And it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. So that's why Jilopa is saying, don't recollect. What you will find when you look into the past is only your own mental activity, which you won't be able to recognize as your own mental activity because you think you're thinking about something else. You think there is a real past there, a real September. Remember, we met in that restaurant. The food was terrible, but we had a good time. Blah, 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 blah. But story. It happened. We were there. Who was there? We are different. The event is gone. So what Chilopa is saying is, don't be seduced by the delusion that the past exists as a place you can go to. Similarly, he says, no imagining. Don't imagine what the future could be. Don't fabricate big plans and imagine that they could be imposed on the world and made to happen in a particular way. Because whether plans are fulfilled or not, that depends on many, many different factors. So when we think about the future, what we need is to be relaxed and open and available to our own potential so that the potential can move through us into the next moment and the next moment and the next moment. But if we have already thought exactly what we want to do, and then we impose it, it's going to be quite difficult. Because what I think would be a good idea may not be what you think is a good idea. This is why in businesses, in organizations, if the boss is always writing the agenda for the meetings and is coming in with 5 important proposals of how we should proceed, then you're trapped into either agreeing with the boss, although you don't actually agree, but you have to agree because he's the boss, or you disagree and you get into a conflict, but it can't go anywhere because he's actually the boss. So there's a kind of stuckness which goes with over preparation. Because if the boss is wanting to energize the staff team, they have to be included. And if they're going to be included, they will bring their learning, their skills, their prejudices, their memories, and so on. And so it's a complex field of co-emergence. That's very different from imposing a plan. We can only impose plans when we don't know what the variables are going to be. For example, in the east of England, this spring was very, very wet. We had so much rain and the fields were flooded. And so the farmers had managed to plant the potatoes, the seedlings, but they couldn't bring in the potato crop because the ground was so wet. If they took the tractors out into the field, the tractors started to sink in the mud. So the farmers had invested a lot of money. They're quite experienced in trying to work out how to harmonize with the weather and get the maximum profit from the ground. But it was impossible to predict that so much rain would come. And so all their good planning comes to nothing. And this happens in many, many areas in life. All that the Ukrainians have been doing to push back the Russians, that may collapse if the new government in America is not going to fund it. So events hang in the air as potentials, as possibilities, not as facts. So that's why Tilopa is saying, don't imagine that the future will be some kind of continuation of the present. Don't run it down like train tracks running into the future. Don't extend yourself out of yourself. Rather, stay present in your body with your 5 senses and tune these senses into the field as it emerges, so that you're working with circumstances, not with ideas. Circumstances are the actual phenomena, how much it's raining, what the current price in the market is for potatoes, and so on. These are things which are manifesting and that will shift because the price of potatoes shifts every day in the food markets. So it's not a fixed thing. We don't have access to fixed things, but we can work dynamically in a dynamic world. And that's a very important thing. So then Tilopa says, no considering or no thinking about. Don't think about what is going on now. Because it's a little bit difficult. I mean, I'm looking at a computer screen with a little green dot for the light, and I'm talking to that, and I see small pictures of a few people. So we're trying to meet in an environment which is not exactly conducive to meeting, but we want to get some sense that we're here together. So I'm trying to open up the field of what is Mahamudra. How am I doing? Am I doing okay? What should I say? God, we only have half an hour left. There's so much to say. Maybe I should emphasize this. Ra, 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 ra. Where are we going to go? I'm going to fall over my own feet. I'm going to be thinking and thinking, oh my God, you know? So in that way, I have to trust that I can feel some kind of heart connection with you, and I open myself and allow what I have received from my teachers to flow in a way that might be acceptable to you, that you might be able to do something with. But if I think about it, if I try to judge it and see if it's useful or not, what I'll have is the actuality, the freshness, the immediacy of the moment, and then this kind of fixed structure of evaluation imposed onto it. How am I doing? Is this good? Is this bad? Do more, do less? And the mental activity will stop the flow of connectivity. So this is something very important. You know, musicians know this, that they have to rehearse, they have to know the piece, but they have to give themselves to the performance. And if they're not evaluating it at all, it's going to get a little bit self-indulgent. But if they're evaluating too much, it's going to get a kind of abstract feeling. Same like actors on the stage. They're not just in the character, because they're also looking at the other people on the stage. They're in role with other people in role, and they're both fully here and aware of the situation. So that's a little bit how the Mahamudra approach will be. That moment by moment, you're connected. This is your life as it's manifesting. Don't collapse into it as if you could do it on automatic pilot, which would be unhelpful. But on the other hand, don't go up in a helicopter and look for an overview so that you can check out how you're doing, because then you'll lose the connectivity. So what we want is a loose, dynamic connectivity which allows our participation and the participation of other people. Then Tilopa makes the fourth of his 6 points, which he says, no analyzing. Don't look for hidden meaning. So this is a very interesting point. I was just remembering my own teacher. When he was in London, he said something, and this person said to him, I think what you're trying to say is, and Siar Lama became very, very angry. He said, I'm not trying to say anything, I'm speaking. Like, you know, this is it. This is it. We're not trying. It is what it is. So, but if you analyze it, if you try to work out what is the motive of the other person, you end up like a detective or a lawyer in the court trying to think, is there some hidden agenda? Are there some secrets which are not being disclosed? And again, you have a triangulation. They've got you, the other person, and your analysis of what they might be doing. Now, if you're a professional political interviewer and you have to interview very tricky people, then you need that form of intelligence. But in terms of meditation, when we're sitting, we're just sitting in the practice. Some days meditation seems clear, some days it seems terrible, some days we're very sleepy, some days we're very kind of buzzy and alive. All kinds of different experience should arise. And, you know, if you read the books on Mahamudra practice and Dzogchen, they all say the same thing. Don't judge your meditation experience. Simply stay with how it is as it is. Because once you bring your template for evaluation, your system of evaluation, once you import that, you objectify your experience, you pull it out of its lived context, and then you're thinking about something that can be thought about. Whereas when you're actually in the non-dual flow, it's so much easier. By non-dual here, I mean that when we are meeting together, I'm not someone with a message that I want to give to you. So I'm not writing something on a little paper plane like in school, and then you throw it across the classroom to someone else to read what's inside. This is a co-emergence. That is to say, we start with connectivity. We start with inclusion. I am in the world with you. At the moment, you are my world. I don't have any other world. I'm just got this. You know, I have many imaginal worlds. I'm going to different places. Maybe that's in the future. That's speculation. What I have is here with this computer, with the few faces that I can see. This is my life at the moment. So if I stick with this, if I start with, I'm looking at you, looking at me, then there is a kind of flow. We're in it together. And from that, the flow of connectivity can arise. But if I start inside myself and think, oh, what shall I say? What would be good to say to them? That would somehow imply that I could have an accurate, objective knowledge of what would be really useful for you. But that will depend on your actual mood or your actual situation in the moment. You might be hungry, you might be tired, you might be having your menstrual cycle, you might have all sorts of things happening for you that will influence how you are. This is not secondary, this is not after the fact of studying Dharma. This is part and parcel of it. So Mahamudra, as all-inclusive, is saying, however you are, this is all you have to work with. It's just this. So if you get into judging it, what will happen is you will distance yourself from the emergent field of experience and get the false clarity of coming to conclusions about how it was, how it could be improved, which are just thoughts, and these thoughts will then be out of date because you'll forget them. But if you stay, even with the confusion of our being together in these strange circumstances, we might be touched by something. We might have a sense of this is vital. This is actually how my mind is. I'm not reliable. I don't know how my mind is going to present itself. And so the structure that I begin with as I am an educated person who knows things about how the world is, we just park that and put it on one side, and we say, I'm going to open to experience, and rather than telling experience what it is or how it should be, I'm going to open to experience and be with experience so that I move with experience, as if I'm getting onto a horse that doesn't really want me to be riding it. The horse is going to be jumping about a bit and doing some funny things, trying to throw me off. So I need to work with the horse. There's no point in saying, this is a very bad horse, I want a proper horse. If the horse of your life is bumpy, if you have a difficult relation with your parents or your kids or your lover or whoever, this is it. This is it. There's no shop you can go to and get another life. So how do we stay dynamically connected with what is arising? So what he's suggesting is don't judge it. Once you say, oh, I really don't like the way you speak to me nowadays. When we first met, you were so kind and sweet, and now you seem to be unhappy all the time. I mean, these kind of conversations will go nowhere, because now you've objectified the other person, you're giving them their performance review, and they're starting to think, okay, well, I also can talk that way. I'm going to give you a performance review, and it becomes more fixed, more solid, more locked, because you're now focusing on disappointment, that I could imagine you being better than you are. Why don't you try harder to be the one I need you to be? Not a very attractive invitation. So that's what he's saying. When you're looking at your own mind in the meditation, you get some days where you can't meditate. You sit, maybe you're sitting for half an hour, and it's just disaster. You're all over the place, your body doesn't want to settle. The key thing at that point is always let it go. This is it. If I go into judgment that I know what a good meditation is, that I know what mental clarity is, then I've already extracted this observer self from the situation, and I've got an overview whereby I can see accurately how it is. Now you're out of the meditation. You've swum, you've got out of the sea, you're standing on a rock and looking at the waves all around you, but you seem to have some stability. But the rock is in the sea, and it's a barren rock. There's nothing growing there. There's just judgment. You can't eat judgment. Judgments won't make you happy. They don't establish anything. Better to get back in the sea, and you're there with however your mind is. So the mind is very disturbed. Stay precisely on the point of the arising of the disturbance. That is to say, don't go into the future, don't go into the past, don't go to the side and look at yourself as if you're keeping an eye on yourself. You stay right in the midst of the arising of the confusion or the anger or the jealousy, whatever it is that's arising. Just this, just this. It is as it is. And you come back to the phenomena as they are, without any image of them, evaluation of them, interpretation of them. This is the heart of the Mahamudra practice. A true being with how it is. Because the advantage of this is that the openness which occurs in your being present when you stay with how it is, this openness is very tolerant. It's not like a club which has a bouncer, a sort of protector guy on the door who's saying, you look dangerous, you can't come in. You look drunk, you can't come in. There's no evaluation. It's like everything is already here. Everything is workable. The limit to the workability of circumstances is the limitation on my access to my own potential. Yeah? That is to say, maybe I'm afraid of angry people. Say, for example, my father was very angry. I try to avoid angry people, but something's happened and I find myself being very angry. So angry thoughts are arising in my mind and I don't like them. And I think, oh, I hate my mind being like this. This is awful. It reminds me of being a child. So that's an interpretation. I have already decided this anger is bad in itself. It shouldn't be happening. Secondly, I don't like it. Thirdly, I want something else. So what these three, excuse me, what these three factors operating together do is they alienate me from my immediate presence. Because I now have a kind of admission system, like someone having to apply for a visa. Who are we looking for? Who is going to get a welcome? And the key way in which you can know whether you're doing Mahamudra practice or not is whether you welcome everything. You welcome physical pain, sickness, you welcome happiness, you welcome good food, you welcome a bad coffee. Everything is allowed to be as it is because the phenomena arrive before the judgment. Yeah? So you go in a cafe and you order a coffee, you sit down and you start to drink the coffee. Oh, so you got a taste. Just on the back of that taste came the thought, ooh, this is not very nice. This is not good coffee. I don't like this coffee. But I'm in a hurry. I don't have time to go to another cafe and order a better coffee. I have this. But how can I enjoy this? Because I've already told myself that this is very bad coffee. Much better give this drink a new name. This is very delicious dishwater. So the person in the kitchen who was cleaning all the dishes, they filled the kettle with this, and this is what I'm drinking. This is marvelous. I have rarely in my life enjoyed such an unpleasant cup of dishwater. That way you, at least you bring yourself in relation to it. So as I'm drinking it, I have this taste. What is this taste? The taste comes before the judgment, but we have been trained to judge, to evaluate, to define, to decide. And so it comes so close on the phenomena, so close, instant judgment. Now in Mahamudra, we're concerned with instant presence. We're here, this is here, but we don't want instant judgment. The instant judgment is a habit formation. It's not fresh. It is the limitation of my freedom to be with however it is. So it's not that you need to get rid of judgment so that you end up in a state where you don't know the difference between a good cup of coffee and a bad coffee. You still have that aesthetic appreciation, but it's not consolidated. It's not made heavy as a final judgment. This is terrible. I can't drink this. Well, maybe I have to drink it. Maybe I'm thirsty. You know, if you're in the summertime, if you're walking up in the mountains and you get thirsty, you might need to drink from a stream that's not so clean. You have to do that. Or if you stay in a little hotel, maybe the mattress is terrible and you think, oh, how could anyone sleep in this? Well, I have to sleep as much as I can. It is what it is. It is how it is. So if we understand from these external examples, we're sitting in the meditation and our mind is as it is. So the instructions was don't get disappointed, don't get downhearted, don't imagine that other people have better meditation than you. Don't create this vertical axis where you should be going up and up and up, making progress. You start as a beginner and then you get more experience and then it gets better, because it might be very difficult. Many of these older Tibetan lamas had very, very physical difficulties in their old age. They had painful cancers, all kind of pains in the spine and so on. They have to live with that. They can't say, oh, I'm a Tibetan Lama, I need to get a perfect body. It's not like that. They get all these problems. The question then is, how do we relate to that? It is like this. Now, we have pain and we have pleasure. And we set these as opposites, back to back, mutually exclusive categories. That is to say, if it's pleasure, it's not pain. If it's pain, it's not pleasure. Well, when you have that structure, you know how to allocate value to the experience. But of course, It could be that you're going to have chronic back pain. And for meditators, that's not great news, because you've got to sit and try not to move too much. And you've got to have your spine in the right way, and you might have a lot of pain. So what do you do with that? I am tormented by this pain. That's a conclusion. What is pain? Pain is sensation. So in the text, they say, they have this word in Tibetan, dewa, which means bliss or pleasure, but pain is also pleasure. I'm not talking about some sadomasochistic nightclub here. You know, the pain and the pleasure are both sensations which arise and pass. While they're here, what are they? There's a kind of, you, if you stay with your experience, with the phenomena of pleasure, with the phenomena of pain, before you apply the conclusion, you start to see the liveliness, the luminosity of the arising of this sensation. So rather than objectifying it and turning it into a thing which is persecuting you, I can't get rid of this, it's ruining my life. Rather than doing that, you simply stay relaxed, release into the out breath, and stay with the sensation, however it is. So then Tilopa says, no meditating, meaning don't cultivate anything. Don't try to improve how your mind is. Now, that might seem a very strange thing to say. After all, life is difficult. We face many challenges. You might want your meditation practice to give you some relaxation and release from the tensions of your working life. You might want it as a site where you can go deeper into your felt sense of who you are. But what he's saying is, don't try to develop anything at all, because when you see that whatever occurs as your experience is fleeting, is passing very quickly, a thought arises and it vanishes. A feeling arises and it vanishes. No experience remains. All experience is processional. It's moving through the space of awareness, which is the truth of Mahamudra. So if you try to cultivate certain mental formations like loving kindness and good wishes towards all sentient beings, these are very beautiful things to develop, but they are artificial. And so you're bringing them in as it were, part of the furniture of how you are. Yeah. So it's like you decide you're going to buy a nice white carpet. So there you are in your lounge, you put down a beautiful white carpet. But now you're very anxious. Will somebody put their dirty feet on the carpet? Will they spill some coffee on the carpet? Will they spill some red wine on the carpet? So now my beautiful white carpet has given me the position of policeman in my own flat. Be careful, be careful. So that's what happens when you have the cultivation of something, that you become charged with the protection of this vital quality, which is, of course, vulnerable to circumstances. All compounded things are impermanent. So, loving kindness is very precious, but also being able to be angry sometimes is also precious. Because if you have small children, sometimes you need to really shout at them and say, don't do that. That is really dangerous. And a little bit of fear for the child then becomes like a kind of brake which is applied to their mindless progression. This is ethical. This is helpful. But if you think, no, I need to speak sweetly to people all the time, then you're not fine-tuning your engagement with the actual lived situation of this person. So, however the mind is, this is how it is. Don't analyze, don't select, don't establish some factors as better than others. So, for example, say you're meditating and you start to get a whole stream of negative thoughts, critical thoughts, cruel thoughts. You want to hurt someone or you want revenge. You're really pissed off with someone, you're angry, you want revenge. I don't want them to be happy. So you might think, oh, if I'm cultivating my mind, that is not a flower, that is a weed. And I need to get rid of the weed quality of that kind of thought and replace it with, may all beings be happy, may even the people who cause difficulty for me be happy. So that would be a Mahayana transformation of a limited negative attitude into something bigger. In Mahamudra, we wouldn't do this for a very good reason. What is the nature of the cruel thought? It arises with a pattern and it vanishes. And if you directly see the self-vanishing or the self-liberating or the non-endurance of this mental formation, which you don't like, if you really see it doesn't endure. And why is that? Because it doesn't have inherent existence. It's not something real. It doesn't have a life of its own. It arises due to causes and circumstances. And so if I don't interfere with it, it will come and it will go. And then you have the self-purification of all the negative factors in the mind. And they're purified on the basis of their having no capacity to exist in themselves. They are transient formations. So if you get very upset because you have this kind of thought, maybe could be erotic thoughts about a previous partner, it could be any kind of thing that gets you kind of going inside yourself, don't try to change it. Just stay relaxed and the thought will release itself. And this is the very big distinction between the approaches of Dzogchen and Mahamudra and all the other Dharma aspects. Because in the other Dharma paths, we are active agents trying to improve the kind of experience that we have. Whereas in Mahamudra and in Dzogchen, we relax ourselves out of this central role of the doer, the agent, the maker. We relax into pure awareness in which these formations are arising and passing, and we don't adopt some of them as this is my good thought and reject others as this is my bad thought. All the thoughts are allowed as thoughts in the mind. None are mine, none are definitive of me. So if I have a whole sequence of negative, hateful thoughts, this is not an indication that I am a negative, hateful person. If I sit relaxed, these thoughts will vanish. It is through my merging with the thought that I think, oh, I'm a spiritual person. I'm having lots of good thoughts for the benefit of others. Or I'm a terrible person. I'm having these horrible thoughts. I need to get rid of them. And then you ask some Lama what to do, and they say, oh, you have to do more Dorje Sempa. You have to purify these thoughts. But if you watch the thought itself, it will self-liberate. Self-liberate simply means it will vanish. It cannot remain. It does not remain. It has no life of its own. The thoughts stick to you because you provide the glue. Thoughts don't have any glue. You glue things onto you. You think, I'm arrogant, I'm selfish, or I'm kind, I'm supportive. My colleagues at work really like me because I'm a good, friendly person. Whatever story you tell yourself, this is some glued composition. If we're following Mahamudra, we don't need to do this construction. And the sixth of Tilopa's point is no straying, which means that you simply abide at ease in the here and now. Whatever is arising, whether it seems good or bad, let it come, let it go. Let it come, let it go. I don't need it. Mahamudra is complete, or like Dzogchen, the great completion. These are saying from the very beginning, there is an integrity or a wholeness to all experience. And so you don't have to interfere. You don't have to make your mind. You already have a mind. You don't have to improve your mind. There's nothing wrong with your mind as it is. What is missing is a lack of awareness of the ground nature. The basis of our life is the openness of our mind. Since you woke this morning, you have had thousands of thoughts and feelings. That indicates that you are a site of ceaseless manifestation. In your mind, in your body, with your voice, different words come out, different thoughts come out, different responses to people. You are not a fixed, defined thing. You are the site of the emergence of diversity. And the more you are at home in this diversity, and you see that because it's arising with the other, it is intrinsically ethical. So it's not that I'm going to do it to you or you're going to do it to me, because that would be the dualistic subject onto object approach. It's that if we are connected, this quality of connection, our point of contact, is the site of the emergence of our speaking or singing together or dancing or cooking. We've probably all got the experience of cooking in the kitchen with someone and just finding it really, really difficult. And you're thinking, blimey, every time I turn to the left, that person's blocking what I'm doing. I lean to get the knife and they're already grabbing it. What's going on here? And then with other people, it's just like it's flowing as if it's something you've rehearsed, because you have a kind of syncopated quality. It's very, very interesting. So don't fight these things. If you have a bad day of meditation and the mind seems blocked and stupid and dull, just stay with that. How amazing. It's like this. It is not a school report card. It doesn't mean you're not making any progress. It doesn't mean that you're useless. It doesn't mean you'll never get enlightened. It doesn't mean anything, because it's not a report on you. You are not a thing. To be empty of self is to be free of being the object of judgments. You can't name and define the ungraspable. You yourself, in the openness of your mind itself, of your pure awareness, you are ungraspable. This is your intrinsic freedom. So Tilopa's saying, don't go off looking for anything better. It's exactly the same as Garab Dorji says in his third statement. Remain with this. Don't go looking for something better. Just stay with this. Stay with the intrinsic purity of the mind. Don't rely on conceptual interpretation. Remain relaxed, fresh, present, however it is. And then you see all these different formations arise and pass through. And this is wisdom, because you're seeing directly the emptiness or the ungraspability of whatever's occurring. And it is also the presence of kindness, because the more you don't react to the limiting factors in yourself, your laziness, your jealousy, your disappointment in yourself, that you thought you'd be doing more practice and you haven't done it, and so on and so on. The more you are tolerant of that, accepting of that, you bring that towards other people. So you're not entering into judgment on other people. You're not judging yourself. It is as it is. What does it mean? It means whatever you want to make it mean. There is no meaning in judgment. You can take it anywhere you like. It is empty. It is already vanishing. It's not a thing. Like Pato Rinpoche says in his teaching on Garab Dorji's 3 points, he says it's like writing in water. So if you have a bowl of water and you put your finger in it and you write your name, by the time you get to the end of your name, the first letters have already dissolved. It's like that. The whole history of your life has been writing on water. So when you're thinking about your past, it's already dissolved. When you're thinking about the future, the water is undisturbed. So he's saying, Tilopa's encouraging Naropa, don't get distracted into doing something with what's happening. If you stay with the naked mind, all the necessary clothes will come spontaneously. But if you select your own wardrobe and you decide, I'm not going to wear this, oh no, I only like this color, this suits my eyes, so that's what I have to wear, then your limitation of yourself is also your limitation of how you can connect with other people. So our capacity to show many different forms, like Tara has her 21 forms, these are very important to see. If you look at paintings of these 21 forms, they're quite different. Sometimes Tara looks very fierce, sometimes she looks very sexy, sometimes she looks very kind of motherly. These are all the different ways of Tara being Tara. And if you looked if you keep old photographs, if you laid them out on the table and you saw photographs of how you were as a small child and then through the stages of your life, these are all just forms of your open, empty potential. You were able to show these forms and be that kind of a small girl or a small boy, because that was your uninterrupted manifesting of that potential. And then it's changed, and then it's changed, and then it's changed, because each of these modes of yourself was situationally derived. And when you read about the 21 Taras, there is a story for each of these 21 Taras of the circumstances out of which she showed that particular form. It's the same with the 8 forms of Padmasambhava. They don't fall out of the sky for no reason. Padmasambhava manifests these forms in the service of contact. So his inner freedom of not being overdetermined as I am this person, I know who I am, he's free of that. And therefore, he's free to manifest in different ways with different people. So there you get the intrinsic unity of the wisdom of emptiness and the all-embracing, all-inclusive kindness. And that's a kind of central theme of Mahamudra. So that's probably our time. So very nice to have a little bit of contact with you. And I hope your practice goes well, and perhaps we'll meet somewhere on a retreat or someplace. That would be very good. So my pleasure to be with you.
Okay, James, thank you very much for connecting with us and giving us a taste of Mahamudra. Um, as you often say, you can't think your way out of samsara.
Indeed.
Um, but if you stay with the one who is thinking without interfering and without processing all the things that move in the mind, you can open up to the awareness that is liberating us from all that stuff.
Super.
And yeah,
So
thank
thank
you.
you very much for inviting me, and I wish good fortune to the Tibet House in Frankfurt. It's been a very important site for the continuity of Tibetan activities and for our remembrance of the Tibetan people who continue to suffer so many difficulties to maintain the Dharma in their own land.
Okay, so
Okay, so now I go. Bye bye.
thank you for being with us, and we would like to invite you again. And
Okay,
we wish you all the best for your health
thank you.
and have a healthy winter.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you for all the participants joining us and
Wonderful. Nice to
spending.
meet you, if only
Bye.
on the screen.
Okay. Bye.
Bye for now. Bye bye.
Bye bye.